Hi, everyone. This is Rico Figliolini, host of Peachtree Corners Live, and we have an election coming up. It's actually a runoff, June 18th, and I have one of the candidates for one of those runoffs, which is the candidate for Superior Court Judge here in Gwinnett County, Tuwanda Rush Williams. Hey, Tuwanda, how are you?
Hello, Rico. How are you?
Good, good.
Good.
Appreciate you spending the time this afternoon coming out to speak to us and answer questions and talk about your candidacy. So appreciate you
Thank you.
doing that. Absolutely.
Thanks for
Um,
the opportunity.
no, for sure. And I think our readers and followers enjoy this type of thing. We just did one for the school board race, District 3, and I got good responses on that. They enjoyed that, learning a bit more about candidates that are running. So why don't we start off, Tawanda, with you telling us a little bit about yourself and tell us why or what motivated you to want to run for Gwinnett Superior Court Judge?
Absolutely. Thank you.
Sure.
So, again, my name is Tuwanda Rush Williams, and I have been a resident of Gwinnett County for about 24 years now, quite a while, I guess. 2000 is when we moved here, beginning of 2000. And I'm originally from Rochester, New York, but I have been in Georgia for the last 32 years. So I consider myself a Georgia peach at this point. But I am married, and I have my husband is Dr. Anthony Williams. He is a retired Gwinnett County Public School Systems assistant principal, and he is also an Army veteran. And we have two adult children, one who is in pharmacy school at UNC Chapel Hill, and the other is a youth, college, and young adult minister and an information technology specialist at Cox Enterprises. And so I've been practicing law for 31 years, a long time.
Wow.
Most of that time here in Gwinnett County, working for Gwinnett County government, and for the past year, working at the law firm of Thompson O'Brien, Kapler, and Nasuti in Peachtree Corners. So, why am I seeking this position?
Hmm.
Simply because of what I observed in my 18 years working for Gwinnett County government. I rose to the position of second command. So I was deputy county attorney in the county attorney's office, and I represented all 5,300 employees, which included the district attorney, the clerk of court, the solicitor general, the sheriff, the tax commissioner, and the judges on all six courts. So I spent a lot of time at the Gwinnett County Jail, and what I saw were the large number of persons with diagnosed mental illness sitting in the Gwinnett County Jail. When I left the county in May of last year in order to run for
Hmm.
judge, and I had to leave my job because it was a conflict of interest to run for judge when I defended the judges when they were sued. When I left the county, there were 500 people with mental illness, diagnosed mental illness, sitting in the jail. They tend to be socially isolated. They require around the clock observation. They are a higher suicide risk, and they require a lot of manpower resources. Because of that, there were another 2,200 inmates in the regular population who were pretty much on their own, neglected. They were getting showers one day a week. It was very difficult for them to meet with their lawyers to prepare for their cases to go to trial. They also did not have much recreation time simply because there was not enough staffing to manage the 2,200 regular inmates and simultaneously take care of the 500 inmates with mental illness of some type. Um, so, one of the reasons why I decided to run is because I don't want to see people with diagnosed mental illnesses sitting in the jail awaiting trial. They don't get better sitting
Hmm.
in the jail. They need to have alternative custody arrangements. They need to be able to be in a mental health facility, or they need to be at home with counseling services, therapy services, medication, stabilization, and a case manager while they are awaiting trial. And what I see in the county right now is that we have accountability courts, but they need to be expanded. And judges need to put a request in their budget to expand those courts so that we have a place to put people who have been charged with a crime but are not good candidates for being locked up in our jail. So I would like to see judges not send people to jail that have mental illness, but also send them to places like a Viewpoint Health, which is inadequate for staffing purposes right now. They only have 16 beds. So we need to actually advocate in our court system for more money to take care of those with diagnosed mental illnesses as opposed to sitting them in the jail.
So for most people that don't understand, they might think Gwinnett Superior Court Judge is just a sitting judge listening to cases, felony cases, family law, divorce, child custody. But it is more as well an administrative role, deciding budgets and personnel, right?
That is exactly true. Superior Court judges have a budget just like any other county department or state department, and they will go down to the Capitol and advocate for various issues as well that impact the court system. And one thing you said, Rico, that I want to follow up on, most people think of Superior Court as criminal felony cases and family law cases are heard there. But did you know that there are a large variety of matters that are also heard in Superior Court that I handle over the last 19 years as a government lawyer, such as your property tax appeals, condemnation cases, inverse condemnation cases, elections lawsuits, civil rights lawsuits, contract disputes, all kinds of declaratory judgment actions, stormwater issues, things that people don't really think about that are heard in Superior Court. And you would only have experience in those areas if you have been a local government lawyer, such as myself.
And you've been doing this, you said, for 31 years, practicing here in Georgia.
Yes, practicing in Georgia 31 years. I practiced most of my career in Gwinnett County. So the last 19 years, I worked here in Gwinnett, 18 years in the county attorney's office, rising and promoted to second in command. And for the past year, working at Thompson O'Brien Law Firm, where we represent the city of Norcross, Bryan County, and some other municipalities doing a variety of work.
So getting back to a little bit about that budget, about the mental health issues, which is a challenge, a rising challenge, obviously. Like you said, mental health issues, putting people into prison doesn't make them any better. They don't have the programs there. And everything costs money, right? Someone says to me, "Oh, can we just do this?" Well, everything costs money. And you're just adding to the bill. So that's one thing that costs money. Then you have other things that cost money, whether you don't have enough staff to be able to do the things you need to do and all that. So understanding you want to lobby for money, understanding that you have a finite budget right now, what would be the first thing you do if you were to win, to attend to those mental health issues? What is one of the first things that you would do in there, knowing that you have a finite budget? You don't have anything more coming at that moment.
So the first thing that I would do as a judge is I would look for opportunities to sentence those with a diagnosed mental illness to arrangements that are not in our jail custody. So if they were a candidate to be able to be at home with counseling services and a case manager, that's where I would send them while they were awaiting trial, as opposed to putting them in our jail. Because
and you
so
talk
that
about
would be the first thing I would do is I would look for opportunities to send people who've been accused of crimes to their home environment, as opposed to putting them in the jail, which is a place where they're just not going to get better and there's just not enough resources. But then after I looked at who would be a good candidate for being home, because everyone can't be home with a diagnosed mental illness, right? Then I would look for opportunities to advocate for the budget for Superior Court to be expanded such that we can maybe take monies from some other area, right? We have a mental health court, we have a veterans court, we also have a drug court. But the mental health court is where we have the greatest financial need, simply because of the number of individuals who are coming through the court system with a diagnosed mental illness. So I would look at those other two courts to see if we could reallocate funds from those courts to the mental health court so that we could expand the budget to take care of those people. Viewpoint Health will take individuals who do not have insurance or who are underinsured, who have a diagnosed mental health condition. The problem is that they only have 16 operable beds, which is just not enough, which shows you that they need to be expanded. They need to have larger facilities, more beds, more staffing. So we've got to figure out a way to cut the budget in some other areas in the county and add that money to mental health services for the court.
Let me ask you something, not that we can solve the issues here, but the jail system is run by the sheriff, correct? The budget and all that.
It is.
Okay.
It is.
So, and you're moving with the thought is there's 500 prisoners that have mental health issues. Obviously, not all of them. I mean, some of them are violent criminals that are going to have to sit there. There's no other place to put them, most likely, right? So if you're moving 100 of them out of there, though, maybe does it make sense then to look at the jail system and say, okay, they're spending a certain amount of money per, prisoner doing that. I know this is not the norm, looking at budgets from different departments, but shifting money from within a department. Is that a county commission responsibility?
It is a county commission responsibility, but the commissioners have to receive a budget from the various county courts and departments in order to set a budget for them.
Gotcha.
So you are correct. The overall budget is approved by the Board of Commissioners, but they have to receive a budget request from the court system as well as from the sheriff so that they can make the right decisions. So you're correct.
So when, some of it's, okay, so aside from the mental health issues, which is a big issue, obviously, there's other issues within the system. COVID brought that to light to a degree, right? And different things were done differently a bit because of not being able to meet in person. Some of it's successful. Some of it, I think, is still continuing. Some of it isn't. Do you think that technology, the role of technology in modernizing the court system makes sense? You talked before about how individuals can't meet their lawyers. Well, is that an in-person visit or is that a lawyer that can meet them on a Zoom call? I mean, is there areas that you'd like to see changed or, within the court system that can be helpful?
Yes, there are a couple of things that I'd like to see improved. One thing that we definitely need to improve is the number of lawyers that are appointed as indigent defense attorneys, because we have a large number of persons accused of crimes who cannot afford a lawyer. And so in Gwinnett County, we utilize private lawyers to represent those individuals, and they receive an hourly wage. That program is governed by an indigent defense governing committee, and I served on it for 7 years before I left the county. And one thing that I'd like us to do to improve upon that system is to recruit more lawyers who are willing to defend persons who cannot afford a lawyer. What's happening right now is the courts are backlogged with their criminal cases because there's just not enough lawyers available to appoint to represent someone accused of a crime. And one thing we need to do is to increase the hourly rate of private lawyers who are able and willing to represent indigent persons. So I'd like to see the county improve the hourly rate for those individuals. Another thing I'd like to see is what
Yes.
you alluded to, is greater use of technology. During COVID, a lot of the hearings were held by Zoom. And that was
Right.
great when you just have a lawyer on either side of a case, who has the ability to present information over Zoom. It doesn't
Right.
work for trials because you have to have a jury. And so you
Well,
can't.
and that probably works best when you have the individual in person, actually,
That
for
is
that reason.
correct. And you've
Yeah.
got to be able to determine that person's demeanor,
Hmm.
and everything else, right?
Sure. Yeah.
But certainly we can continue to use technology for a routine motion, for example. You
Hmm.
know, a motion to exclude evidence that certainly can be heard using virtual capability. So I'd like to
Right.
see us continue to use technology for what I consider hearings and very short matters, and
Hmm.
maybe even expand upon it, because it worked really well during COVID. But
Hmm.
much of the use of technology for virtual hearings has disappeared in the last couple of years. The judges, most of the judges tend to have those hearings in person again.
I think from one of the lawyers I heard also, technology-wise, that things are digitized. All the files that it's digitized, so it's easier to look them up. But the other problem with that is, of course, a lawyer can't go back and check the cartons of files, let's say, of things that maybe weren't scanned, because not everything is scanned, unfortunately, it seems. So there's that two-edged sword right there, I think, right? Of
Yes.
you got to make sure everything's scanned, or you're gonna have to still hold the physical evidence uh, for later, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Absolutely. That is
Because,
an issue.
okay. Do you feel, have you seen as a lawyer, and do you foresee AI being an issue? Whether it's deep fakes or it's documents being presented that are false documents, for example. Do you see AI being an issue, or how would you attend to that technology in the realm
Uh,
of the courts?
that is a very good question. I have mixed feelings about AI. Um, I think that it would be beneficial to use artificial intelligence for basic research purposes.
Hmm.
So if the lawyer or the judge wants to know the statute of limitations for a particular civil case,
Right.
then AI would be great because you just simply ask, what is the statute of limitations? You get your answer, it's easy.
Right.
What I think is bad about AI for purposes of the courts is that AI is digitized, which means it has no feelings, it has no emotions, right?
Hmm.
So you cannot use AI to determine a person's individual circumstances or background, particularly when you are making decisions based on family needs, custody arrangements,
Hmm.
um, visitation arrangements, or when you are dealing with someone who's been accused of a crime, because AI doesn't have compassion. AI doesn't have empathy.
Right.
So I
Right.
would never want to see a quote unquote robo judge. Um,
Yeah,
I
I
think
can't
you
see
have
that.
to have human beings
Hmm.
making decisions and weighing the credibility of witnesses. But I do think that AI could actually speed up the handling of cases from the perspective of staff attorneys who conduct research for judges, as well as for the lawyers themselves who represent clients.
Okay. Um, Dealing with public trust and transparency. Um, some are maybe true, maybe not true, maybe just myths, maybe just legends, maybe just people think this is the way the system is and it's not fair. You know, the reality could be a little different, right? So how would you handle or improve public trust in the judicial system? Because that always seems to be a negative thing there. But how would you try to improve that?
Well, one of the things that I talk about on the campaign trail is the lack of visibility of our judges. And what I mean by that is most people don't know who the judges are.
Sure.
Most people have no idea what types of matters are heard in each court. So, one of the things that I would do to try to improve public trust is to require the judges to be more visible in the community and maybe have something like a uh, just coffee with a judge once a
Mm-hmm.
month, where you put the judges on rotation so that the public members can come in and ask questions about the process. You know, how do I go about filing a lawsuit? What types of cases are heard in your court?
Mm-hmm.
For instance, you may have the probate court chief judge one month, and then you may have the state court chief judge another month, and then the superior court chief judge another month,
Right.
and then the magistrate court and the recorder's court and juvenile court. Just because if people don't feel like they have access to the court system, they
Mm-hmm.
are less likely to trust the court system. They're less likely to see it as fair. But when they
Sure.
are able to interact up close and personal with the judges, then they can ask the questions that they need to ask to feel more confident that the system is fair. So that's one thing that I would do. Obviously, judges take an oath to be fair,
Mm-hmm.
to be impartial at all times, and of course, they must use good judgment. They're required to have continuing education, just like a lawyer. So there are things that are mandated by the Code of Judicial Conduct of Georgia that judges are required to do to make sure that they maintain fairness and so that the public can trust that the decisions they make are legally sound and fair. But that's not seen by the public. So I think we have to have our judges more visible in the community.
Sounds good. The To ensure impartiality and fairness in the judicial decisions, I know that, for example, there's a family that I know that's trying to get custody of the children of their daughter's kids who passed away, and you know, I know that the court system likes to make sure they keep the kids with the immediate family, but sometimes that's not always doable for a lot of different reasons. Maybe the individual person is not a good steward or caretaker for those kids. How do you, you're dealing with lawyers presenting cases versus the individuals per se, but how do you deal with that? How do you deal with that impartiality or the empathy that you should have in a case like that because you're a judge?
Mhm. Well, again, you are relying on the lawyers for each party, right,
Mhm.
to present evidence. And the standard is the best interest of the child. And because that is the legal standard, depending upon the age of the children,
Mhm.
the judge might hear from the children themselves, right?
Gotcha. Right.
And of course, if they are age 14, they can choose where they want to be, who has custody of them. If they
Mhm.
are age 12, the judge can take that into consideration as well. The judge can literally ask, do you want to be with your paternal grandparents, or do you want to be with your biological father?
Mhm.
Tell me why. Tell me what your life experience has been to this point. And those hearings are held in camera, which means that the public is not allowed to come in
Mhm.
and hear that minor share his or her story with the judge. But that's one
Gotcha.
way that you would get at impartiality, which is actually considering what the child or the children want.
Right.
But remember, you're relying on the lawyers who represent these parties who have also taken an oath
Right.
to present all of the evidence that is uncovered, whether it's for or against their client.
Mhm.
And that goes directly to impartiality in the decision of the judge.
With all the cases that you've tried, legal issues that you've handled, has there been any significant case or situation that has impacted you in a good way or bad?
Well, for many, many years, I tried a lot of civil rights lawsuits,
Mhm.
and I tried them in federal court, some in Superior Court. Um, there's one case that I tried um, involving an individual who sued Gwinnett County as well as several Gwinnett County police officers for excessive force.
Mhm.
And it involved an individual who had allegedly stolen a television from an apartment complex. And our police was summoned to the scene, and our Canine unit came. And in this particular case, the gentleman dropped the television that he was carrying, and he ran, and then he jumped down into a ravine. And our police officers sent the Canine in
Right.
to retrieve the gentleman, and he was significantly mauled. He has permanent disfigurement as a result of that. I won the case. I was able to show, well, the interesting thing is the gentleman sued not just Gwinnett County and the officers, but the gentleman sued the Canine, which was the
Really?
strangest thing. I'd never
Wow.
had a case where somebody sued the dog.
Yeah.
Um, but in this case, he sued the canine,
Huh.
which is insane. And I was able um, to win the case ultimately. At first, I lost the case
Mhm.
in the trial level because the judge determined that the use of force was excessive. But I appealed the case to the U.S. District Court of Appeals, and I won the case because I was able to show that the use of force was reasonable because this guy, tried to escape.
Mhm.
But the case gave me, I felt like I should have lost it only because I don't believe that our officers followed proper protocol. Because you cannot send a canine in to attack someone until you've given the suspect fair warning.
Mm.
Uh, and I don't think that that was done.
How
Um,
long? How long ago was that?
the case, it
Yeah.
was several years ago.
Okay.
Um, I want to say it was in probably 2017.
Okay.
Um, but
Because
that
I
was
know.
the one. That was the one case where I felt like we should not have won it between you and I.
Yeah.
And this guy is now permanently disfigured. But
Understood.
other than that, I feel very good about the decisions that were made. And I won 95% of the cases that I ever tried.
And there's a lot of cases out there. A lot of them, a lot of backlog of cases apparently. Um,
Yes.
and I know you touched upon it a little bit, but it is a lot of cases out there. Is there any suggestions what you do to clear that backlog?
Yes. So, of course, the backlog existed even before COVID, but it was exacerbated by
Hmm.
COVID, as we know. And that was largely because the courts actually had to shut down for a period of time because it was not outfitted for the presence of um, the litigants.
Right.
They had to put up plexiglass in the jury boxes. They had to put up plexiglass in front of the podium
Mm.
where the lawyer or the litigant speaks, and in front of the judge's bench as well. And after that, the county was running about 4 years behind on the criminal cases
Wow.
and probably 3 years behind on the civil cases. And criminal cases legally have to be tried first. Um, one of the things that definitely needs to be done more of is greater use of senior judges. We use magistrate judges to
Hmm.
handle cases In fact, my opponent is a magistrate judge, and she handles a lot of family law cases and criminal law cases. She's not utilized for a lot of the areas that I do, like your property tax appeals and condemnations and stormwater cases and
Mhm.
those kinds of suits, because her background was criminal law and family law. But we need to also employ greater use of senior judges. We use some senior judges,
Mhm.
but in order to clear the backlog, we need to use more. These are individuals who have retired from the bench, but they will come back and handle cases for a very hefty hourly rate. Some will say they get paid more as senior judges than they did when they were full time.
Really?
Uh, yes,
Is that
they
what
get
you
paid.
want to do, though?
I'm
Is that what
sorry.
is that what you want to do, though? I mean, that's just add to more to the budget, I guess.
Well, I think you've got to clear the backlog. And
Mm,
so, even though it does add more to the budget, they already have the experience to handle those cases because
mm,
they were judges until they retired. So they
right.
can resolve them a lot quicker because they've seen the issues before. So
Gotcha.
I think you want to use more senior judges. They're already using magistrate judges in Superior Court.
Hmm.
They're not fully using them in state court as they can, but Superior Court does use part-time and full-time magistrate judges to clear the backlog. And my honest opinion is that Gwinnett County needs more Superior Court judge seats. We have 11 full-time Superior Court judges, and Fulton County has 17. And yet we
Wow.
are the second largest county in the state.
Yeah, how is that? A lot more crime?
Well, you got to have somebody to advocate for it. You got to have your elected state representatives,
Yeah.
and your senators to say we need more full-time Superior Court judges, and we are asking the state. You know,
Yeah,
we want you to put. It takes someone to advocate for it.
for
We just
sure.
got the 11th position in 2021.
Yeah. Wow. Long time ago, and things just got more busier. County's
Yes.
growing. Have we touched? Is there anything we haven't touched upon that you'd like to mention?
I just wanted to share my background and experience as opposed to my opponents, because what I found during the runoff was that somehow people think my opponent is the incumbent because she is a magistrate judge.
Mm,
And, I want the voters to know she's not the incumbent. There is no incumbent in this race. This is an open, nonpartisan seat, which means that our names appear on any ballot that you pull,
hmm.
because candidates for judge must run nonpartisan, because they should, because the judge's responsibility is to follow the law of the state and the law of the land and not interpose his or her opinion or
Hmm.
prejudge a case. So my position is an open position, which means there is no incumbent. We
Right.
are seeking to replace a judge who is retiring at the end of the year. And I also wanted to state that when you are looking for someone to elect to the bench, I think you need to take into account more factors than just this person's already a judge. You need to consider diversity of experience. I know 25 areas of the law very well because I was a government lawyer for most of my career. My opponent doesn't have that background as a lawyer. And there's a difference between practicing law, being a zealous advocate for someone, and being a judge who considers the weight of the evidence, the facts, and the law. You also want someone who has ties to the community,
Hmm.
and I have served Gwinnett County for the last 24 years that I've been here. I have served on a lot of nonprofits. I've performed hundreds of hours of community service. And so I am woven into the fabric of Gwinnett County. I know Gwinnett County. I know its citizens. I'm a Leadership Gwinnett grad. I've worked on several Learning Day committees. I'm on Gwinnett Giving Girls nonprofit, Hope nonprofit. I've been on Family Promise of Gwinnett's. I've done a lot. Very active in the Gwinnett County Alumni chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. So I'm committed. I have a long-standing history of service to the county, in addition to having been in the county attorney's office for 18 years until I had to resign in order to run.
For this.
So I would hope the voters would consider all of that and just saying, well, this person's already a judge. She's not a Superior Court judge, never has been, never been elected, neither have I. So we're equal in that regard.
Okay. I think pretty much you've given the speech where you're asking for the vote. So that's pretty good. So that's good. That's what you should be doing. Because if you don't ask for it, you don't get it, right? Where can people find out more information about Tuwanda Rush Williams? What website? Where can they find you?
Absolutely. My website is tuwandaforjudge.com. So it's spelled like my name, TUWANDA, the number 4, judge.com. And there's all kinds of information on there about me and tons of endorsements. Charlotte Nash is someone who has endorsed me. Many people know who she is, as well as the former district attorney, Danny Porter. You can find my entire bio, all the places that I've worked, all the other reasons why I'm running beyond my concern for the people who are sitting in the jail with mental illness. We need to reduce crime and recidivism. We need to offer better support for survivors of human trafficking in Gwinnett, huge problem. Sure. So I hope they'll check me out there.
Cool. Well, Tuwanda, I appreciate you being on the show with us and answering questions and talking about the issues that you care about. I want to remind everyone again, June 18th is the runoff date. There is early voting depending when you're listening to this, and I'll have that in the show notes as well. The opponent is Regina Matthews, so there's only 2 of them. So go listen to the podcast. Be out there, Google their names. You should be able to find out more information. Again, Tuwanda, stay there with us for a minute. Everyone else, thank you again. Yeah, no, for sure. And thank you again, everyone, for listening. There'll be more information as well at livinginpeachtreecorners.com or southwestgwinnettmagazine.com. So check that out. Follow us on social media. And I appreciate you being with us. Thank you.